Welcome to my show. It's a guest here. Her name is Cari Smith. Mrs. Cari, how are you doing, ma?
I am so good. Thank you so much for having me today.
And I also thank you so much for the time and the opportunity, Mrs. Cari. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a teacher and a lifelong storyteller. Can you please, Mrs. Cari, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Cari?
Yes, I am an educator. I spent 25 years in the classroom and I am recently a principal. And so that's probably my primary profession. I've also always been an avid reader. I love writing and telling stories, I love hearing stories. Um, I'm also a wife and a mother. I have three children, three boys. And so we have, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to be their teacher when they were in middle school. And so one of my lifelong dreams was to be a published author. And so this story collection of stories actually started the better part of 15 years ago. So it's been a very long project for me. Um, but I've finally been able to be a published author, and it's been a wonderful journey so far.
Extremely beautiful, and I'm so glad you are actually bringing out a message as well, despite having more than 25 years in the teaching area and actually being a principal of recent. Shows a lot of experience that will also be added into this book that we've brought out today. And also, that is why I would like to drive to the book, Raised on Rooftops. Can you please, Mrs. Carey, discuss more on the book, and do you also plan to write more books in the coming future, Mrs. Carey?
Raised on Rooftops is my debut memoir, and the subtitle is Life Lessons from a Roofer's Daughter, because I am a roofer's daughter. I grew up in a small town in Michigan, and my dad thought it was important to be with his kids, and our family business was really helped by our involvement. And um, in 2010, 15 years ago, I was part of the National Writing Project in at MSU and started writing stories and got some really good feedback. And I thought, you know what? I do have an interesting background. Maybe other people might be interested in what I have to say and what my life experience is. And as years went on, I kept writing. However, I was then discovered newly that I was pregnant with my third child. And so spending a lot of time writing was not something that was going to happen that summer. But every summer for a while, my husband said, you should keep writing. And so we hired a babysitter, and I spent about a week writing with some other writer friends and got some great feedback. And as it evolved, it turned out that those stories kind of broke into three parts. There were some as a daughter, and some as I was a wife, and some as I was a mother. And they kind of naturally broke into those pieces. All of the stories, though, contain life lessons. They always seem to have some nugget by the time I got to the end of them. And so my story started on the rooftops, but really it's a story about the lessons that I learned on the roof with my family, off the roof as a wife, and then as I kind of became and am becoming, because I'm still a mother, the roof for my children in building our own foundation in our own household.
That shows that life is a journey. The beauty of every single thing that you brought on board is you actually take note of every single one of it, which makes it very much valuable. And the valuable it is as you are very young, as you're a wife, and also a mother. It goes with experience that one can actually drive and also get one or two things that can also make them to define life in a more meaningful way, for them to also understand the perspective you've gone through and how they can also improve their life in those other perspectives as well. And that is why I also like to drive to the point of legacy. Legacy is very important as you are currently a mother. It is very important in every single thing we are doing in life. And many people that we have in this current time, I think majority think legacy is something we leave behind later in life. How do you think you can try to let the listeners understand and also begin to see legacy as something they are living in building every single day, Mrs. Carey?
I love this question. It had me look up the word legacy actually. Legacy is the long lasting impact of particular events and actions that took place in the past or a part of a person's life. Um, and I think legacy is right now because who you are currently impacts the people around you, whether you want to admit that or not. Um, and so your friends, your family, your coworkers, all of those get impacted by who you are, and they get felt daily in all of our relationships and how we interact with each other. And so legacy gets built, I think, one day, one moment at a time, because we have such an impact on the world around us in all of those moments. And it's really a collection of those things. But you're collecting every day. And so you build a legacy, but it's in the everyday moments and in the everyday interactions that it gets made one pebble, if you will, at a time.
And also, it starts with the little that we have around us. The little we have and also find around us, we tend to build it every single day. How we interact with people, how we surround people, and how we also try our best to relate with people as well. It's something we do every single day. It doesn't happen in a second, within a day or two, but if we are doing it more constantly, we get used to it. And when we get used to it, it's one of the best and also most important thing that can help us to actually become more better and also live a more fulfilled life as well. And you also write of one of the most important things, which you've also discussed earlier. You write from the role of a daughter, a wife, and also a mother, which you are currently in the stage currently, Mrs. Carey. How do
Yes.
you think these overlapping identities shape the kind of legacy we pass on, even when we are unaware of it, Mrs. Carey?
I think that who you were in the past always remains a part of who you are right now. And so, because of that, you're building your life. And just because some people choose to ignore it doesn't make it less true, in my opinion. Um, and so, I can change, you know, who I am right now based on those things, but um, they overlap because they're always a part of who I am. And if I don't like what happened in the past, and I spend some minutes reflecting on that, I can then make different choices in the future. And so I think that it's accepting that whatever is in the past is, and that it can't be changed, but that you can reflect and either do the same if you really like that, or pick to do something different. Um, but whoever happened, whoever you were in the past is still a part of who you are right now.
I sincerely appreciate that insight. We do know sometimes in our life, when we are very young or in our early stage in life, we had a lot of traumatic experience. We had a lot of experience that by the time we grow older, or most especially as women, become a mother is always difficult. But it will always become a part of us as humans. That is how we are. But it will always be a place for us to see as a sense of reflection, for us to be a person who can actually impact the world in a positive way and also use that as a source of learning as well, and use that as a source as also a tool to impact others in the coming future we find ourselves. And that is why I also like to drive to the point whereby laughter really shows a lot of important trend in your story as well. Why do you feel like, or why do you think joy, having the sense of happiness, is such a powerful and often overlooked part of lasting legacy, Mrs. Carey?
Oh, I love this question because I don't think I realized that there has been so much joy because we do laugh. We do laugh a lot here. Um, life is so hard
Yeah.
sometimes that you really have to keep your sense of humor. And that is something that my husband and I, in particular, we try to always, at least one of us, keep our sense of humor. Because if you can, like, um, not get bogged down in the awful, and sometimes you can't pick the awful, and you wouldn't pick the awful, Um, excuse me, but when it shows up, you can pick how you respond to it. And that has been such an important part of my childhood, but especially our marriage. You really need to look for the joy, and then when you do, you just see more of it. Has been our experience, uh, and it makes the hard, like the fun, great times are added joy. We've had so much laughter over the Christmas break here so far. Um, but when you can find some joy and laughter in the hard parts, it makes them a little more bearable, in my opinion and in our experience. And um, kids allow you to play. And I know kids can be work, and they're so ridiculous and so fun. And I know there's one story I was really resistant to that. And then, like, there's just a freedom in playing and allowing yourself to be ridiculous with them. And when um, we get sick, or we've had some aging parents and some things that have happened, like, it can be really brutal, and it can be such an honor and such a joy to um, just laugh, um, in a time when a lot of people pick to cry. And so that has been something that life has shown us, I think, that has
Yeah.
been just a gift. And so I've been able to find more of that because we practiced doing that. And so it's also something that I feel like people can acquire more of if they're looking for it.
I sincerely appreciate you for this beautiful insight. We do know things are always tough. Things are always difficult at times in life. It is always a stage, it is a journey as well. But despite those difficulties and also toughness we have sometimes in our life, we should find a space to feel a sense of joy. That is why, some people say that their childhood is one of the best life because a child doesn't know anything. And that is why they are always happy. Despite the challenges, despite the ups and downs, they still feel that sense of joy. We should always embrace those type of life in our life also so that we can feel the sense of energy. Joy brings back energy. It brings us fulfillment. It makes us a whole again. It is what we should try to practice also for us to feel more fulfilled in our daily life as well. And that is why I would also like to drive to the point of perfectionism. A lot of people, or probably some listeners who could listen to this, could feel really in a position whereby they just want to be perfect. They feel pressure to just get it right for their families. How do you think letting go of this perfectionism really help create a more honest and also loving legacy, Mrs. Carey?
I think that I struggled. I know I struggled early on, in my life with trying to be perfect. And what I've discovered is that perfect and trying to be perfect, it's really harsh, it's critical, it's demanding. Um, and I tried to trade that in for wanting excellence instead. And I think it's just a slight switch, but a really important one, because excellence allows for correction. It allows for grace and mercy, improvement. It allows for meeting someone where they're at and helping them grow, whether that's my child or myself. Um, and so I find that working for excellence and less for perfection um, allows others to do so in a more loving, more nurturing environment. And so, uh, and it's honest. You get to be honest about what's not working or what's hard, and acknowledging that and then moving from there is really loving. Whereas perfection is, it has to be right, or there's something negative about it, and that just no one feels good about that. Whereas working for excellence, in my experience, and it's been a struggle for me to do that myself, to be quite honest, but doing that is just better because it's more honest, because it's more loving, and it allows for growth in a more natural and better way, in my experience.
Thank you so much for that beautiful insight, Mrs. Carey. We do know sometimes we want to make it to feel perfect, to make it done in the right way. But at the end of the day, it won't just be 100%. Every single thing that is being created on earth is not always 100%. That is why we have devices that grow old. It starts to get faulty. We have things, even we as humans are not even perfect because we die one day. So we should just try our best to make sure that we are doing things right in the life we find ourselves, and make sure that there is improvement in it for us to build a very, very strong legacy as the experience you've had in recent years. And I sincerely appreciate you for that beautiful insight. And I would also like to drive to the point whereby you notice, or also areas where one can notice the lessons life can quietly offer them. Because sometimes we have some kind of signs. And for us to be in the position to recognize the signs, it brings us to the point of being very obvious, and also be very, I think, wise enough as well. So you really highlighted moments of unexpected clarity. How do you think listeners can also slow down enough to notice the lessons life is quietly offering them, Mrs. Carey?
I think you have to be really intentional about it. I think you have to want um, to notice what life is trying to teach you, and that means you have to like make less time for worrying about what might happen in the future or what's happened in the past. My life is pretty full, and so what I've discovered is like I have to spend less time um, thinking too far ahead or like rehashing the things that have happened in the past. And I like to start the day in quiet. I'm a Catholic, and so I have some prayer time. I usually do some reading. Sometimes I just sit. There's usually coffee involved. Um, and then I also write in my gratitude journal. And these are all things that happen on my best days. Some days I don't do any of these things, but on my best days, I'm sitting in the quiet, I'm drinking some coffee, I'm praying, and I'm writing at least three things in my gratitude journal. Um, because I've discovered that if I'm looking for good regularly, I start paying attention to the good more often. And it's usually those really that are the big things. It's amazing to me how many little moments end up in my gratitude journal, and those are really the sweet spot in life. And so I think being intentional and making time for it, and for me, that's meant I had to spend less time worrying about the future or rehashing the past, and that has been a great gift. Yeah.
Very beautiful gift. We all have our gifts, but we just have to be intention and also be in a position to recognize this gift so that we can also use it in the right way. Just as you've been doing writing, praying, and other things that can actually help you. We as humans also others can also look for something that we have in us that we can actually do in our great days when we are happy or when we are feeling whole. Sometimes when we are feeling down, it could be also be a source of strength for us. And it is also always very, very in a position so that we can be in a position whereby we can notice the little offering or the little things that life is actually showing us. Meditating, sitting down, we start to say, oh, these are the things that the life is actually offering me, and how can I use it for the best of the world I found myself. And also, I would like to drive to the point where legacy is often shaped in private moments no one sees, because legacy is something that we have to try our best to build as well. What do you think are some of the small or behind scenes actions that you believe matters most in the long run when someone is trying to have a legacy which is actually shaped in private moments which no one sees, Mrs. Carey?
I think that legacy is built in how you love each other. Um, you have to start there. Intimacy is built in those quiet conversations, those shared experiences, those moments of vulnerability. Um, and there's rarely an audience in my experience. It's usually, nor should there be. There shouldn't be an audience. It should be just between two people or around the dinner table, and it's your family. Um, the legacy, the impact, if you will, of those people um, in my past have always been in those moments when they loved me. Sometimes when I didn't maybe even love myself, and So I'm trying, sometimes really successfully and sometimes really not successfully, to live my life hopefully in the same way, where I'm loving the people in front of me. Um, and it's not always right and it's not always good, but I'm intentionally trying to um, love well and love in those behind the scenes way, because I think you love people quietly, at least in my experience. And maybe it's my love language, but I feel best loved in some of those moments when I'm most vulnerable and they love me anyway. And I'm imperfect and I get grace and mercy, or I'm doing something that takes a lot of courage and creates fear, and I get encouraged and supported. And so I think that legacy in the ordinary moments happens in all of those little private moments when you are loving the person where they're at.
I sincerely appreciate that beautiful insights, Mrs. Carey, because there are little things that we actually do in life, and that is where those legacy are being built. As you said earlier, it is a daily and also a constant thing that we have to build. And also those little things, those little positive things that we actually ignore at times, those really matters. We have to recognize it. We have to be very observant enough to recognize those little signs and also use that as a source to bring ourselves and also develop ourselves as well, so that we can be more stronger with the type of honor and also the type of legacy we're trying to build for those that are also coming in the coming future. And for others who are also reflecting their own path, their own parents rather, for those who are also reflecting their own parents or also their upbringing as well, how do you think they can really honor what was given while also choosing what to do differently as well, Mrs. Carey?
Yeah, this was such a great question as well. I think that you have to start by being grateful for whatever good your parents gave you.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I'm reminded very regularly that people are doing the best they can and that they love their kids. And as a parent, I feel that way about my own kids. And we're also wonderfully human and so flawed. And so I think that we honor our parents by imitating the good that they gave to us. Um, and I think when you mature and your parents become a little bit less idle and a little more human, then you get to pick what you didn't like and do it differently. And you don't, and that's not necessarily a negative on your parents. They were doing the best that they could with what they were given as well. And they have a history, and they were a son or a daughter. They were a wife or a husband. And then when you become a parent, all of that comes with you. And you've had maybe not a chance to work through some of the hard things that happened in your childhood. And when you get to be an adult, you get to pick. And if they didn't work through some of whatever happened in their history, you get to pick to do so yourself or to not do so. Um, but I think it's important um, to honor the good and appreciate the good. And then if you don't like something, to do the hard work to do it differently and better.
Thank you so much. Honoring is very important and also our upbringing as well. But when we honor the little that we have, despite our parents and other things that we find around us, it is actually also a source for us to build a sense of great legacy as well. It shows that we actually respect, we actually give the sense of embracing, and will also embrace life in a positive way, which could also be a source of strength for us. And that is why I would also like to drive back to your book, Raised on Rooftop. I would like to drive if there is any lesson you think, or a specific lesson you think the listeners can try their best to drive from this book. And also, if there is someone listening today who wants to be more intentional about the legacy they are living right now. What do you think from the experience you've had, or also one of the simple practice you would encourage them to start with, Mrs. Carey?
So I think if you are listening today, I want you to know that your story matters because it built you.
Yeah.
And in writing my own story, I hope that I encourage others to tell their stories. One of my favorite things is that my two of my brothers are now telling their kids stories about when they were growing up, and so now their kids are getting a better sense of who their dads are, because they're learning their history. And so I think that my book is for busy moms or daughters or family storytellers, people who really do have a legacy through everyday life, even if they don't know it. I think it's a book for women of faith who long to find God in the ordinary, because the good Lord meets us women in the ordinary. He comes
Yeah.
to us at the well, in the Bible, and in those places. And so he is there if you're looking for him. And then if there's anybody out there that's longing to preserve their family story, at least in this area, we have some really neat stories of people who left hard places and did a lot of hard work, had some grit, and became farmers and did some really good work. And so those are things that I think are important for this generation to know, because it's so different than how my kids are growing up right now. And if you're not going to read my book, I think that that's okay too. I think you can still pay attention, be in the moment. Um, it's so easy to get distracted by the immediacy of life, the bills, the hardship, our phones, our cell phones. You don't always get to pick what happens to you, but I think you always get to pick how you react to it. And so it's been my experience that when I've spent some time reflecting on why I get really upset about things, it helps me to react to them differently in the future. And that has been a really net positive in my house. And so I would encourage everybody to pay attention, to be in the moment, and to share your story with those you love.
Exactly. We do not know our tomorrow. Nobody knows tomorrow. Nobody knows what will happen the next 5, 10 years. But the moment that we are currently, let us embrace it. Let us feel it all with it. Let us feel happy and let us embrace life with it. Let us respect people, honor people, and also give the sense of connecting ourselves to God through prayer as well. And also, this is a big call to women who are out there on your book and also the experience you've had as well. And also people who are also connected to other women out there to let them understand better that there are actually perspective where we can learn, develop, become more better, and build a legacy for the family, for the ones who are coming, and also generations to come. And also, Mrs. Carey, there is a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Carey, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Carey?
Hmm, question. I think I would like to bring back telling stories around a campfire. I think it happens sometimes, but I think it used to happen a lot. I think it was a regular part of how people did life. And I think that it was a beautiful practice that electricity and heating has taken away for us. And I really like electricity and that my house is warm, but I think that telling stories around a campfire would be a great practice to bring back more often.
That shows the beauty and also the strength of community. When someone is staying around campfire, having discussions, telling their stories, it's actually a source of strength and also for us to learn from each other. We do know the devices we have around us are great, but those are a very strong sense moment that we can actually could not forget very easily. And those are things that we do hope in the coming future actually comes back because those are the beauty that we do have during those times that can actually be a source of healing, strength, and also connection as well in our generations today. And also, Mrs. Carey, with the legacy you've had when you're a daughter, now wife, and also currently now you're now a mother who is growing great. And I want to use this opportunity to thank you for the time and the opportunity of bringing this message down to the people out there. Thank you so much, Mrs. Carey.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy. I really appreciate you inviting me here.
All right, Mrs. Cari. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Cari. Bye bye.
as well. Bye bye.